Hi, and welcome back to the Fundamentals of NumPy tutorial. In this section, we're still going through pivoting arrays, and in this section, we'll be talking about how to transpose arrays. So the transpose operation is basically reversing the order of an array. So we can switch from rows to column and vice versa. So in some cases, when you have a multi-dimensional array, you have to specify what axis you want to move from, or what axis you want to move to, or the other in which you want to move it to. So if you have just rows and columns, you can say when you call transpose on it, it just moves the row to the column, and then the elements in the columns become the elements in the row. And that way, I believe we're familiar with that from the basics of matrix in linear algebra. But so let's just see how this works. First, as usual, we create a new array. So I'm creating an array of within the range 90, so from 0 to 89, and then I reshape them into this. And let's see if that works. Yeah. So I have a 3-batch array with each batch with 5 rows and 6 columns. And then, like I said, you can choose to specify axis or not. If you don't specify your axis, it's basically just going to take the rows into column in the order in which it currently exists. Take the rows and the elements in the rows, put them in the column, and vice versa. So when we run this, yeah. So what happens is, if we look closely, like I said, takes the rows and puts into column. So because it's a 3-dimensional array, it's a bit tricky. You probably, if you don't understand this, you probably want to start testing with a 2-dimensional array. But I'll explain quickly what's going on here. It's basically, I take the elements in the first row of the first batch, the elements in the first row of the second batch, and the elements in the first row of the third batch. I create a new row with that, same with the elements in the second row of the first batch, second row of the second batch, second row of the third batch. I create a new row with it. And we keep doing that till we create new rows out of each batches, new rows out of each batches. Same thing with the columns also. So remember, the rows become the column and the column become the rows, right? So in this case, we went across we're dealing with this column within each batch. And so we went down the row to get all the elements in that column, and then make them a row. And the same thing. So when we create that row, the new row within the new batch we'll move to the next column and do the same thing again. So we have one. So we have 1 here, 31 here. So now we're moving along the column now, and then we have 1, 31, and 61. We also have 7, 37, and 67. So we can see them stacking up, right? So this is without specifying axis. If we want to specify, if we don't want to just, if we want a new array to be transposed in a specific format. So I close this so you can see the next one. We can say that, sorry. So I can say that, so I specified axis here. I'm passing the original array that I'm trying to transpose. I'm passing it into the NumPy transpose function, and I'm specifying the axis, the order in which I want to transpose. And so when I run this, now we can see a different result here, slightly different from what we have at first. So what this is doing is it's keeping the batches as they are, because we still want to maintain. We said, so okay, I guess what I need to do first is to tell you what 0, 1, 2 means. 0 means the first axis. So remember, we have a 3-dimensional array. So the index would go from 0, 1, and 2, right? So 0 represents the first index in the shape. This is second index in the shape, and this is the third index in the shape, right? So this would be the batch, this would be the row within each batch, and this would be the column within each batch, right? So given that, we're saying we want to maintain the batch order as it is. We still want the batches to be preserved, but within each batch, make the rows. Remember I said 2 in this case represents the originally 2 is 2, index 2 is the index of column. So now make the column come to this position, thereby making it a row, and then make the row come to this position, thereby making it columns. So this is the original array we created, right? This one here. And then when we compare it with this, we're still keeping the batch. We're still keeping the batch the way they are. You notice that the elements in the batch are the same, but they've just been shuffled within the batch. They've just been moved around within the batch. So my rows 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have become my columns here. Say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then my columns here and now my row. So 0, 6, 12, 18, 24, which was the column in the original array within a batch, is now the row in this case. So that's how to specify access while transposing, right? Another example is this one. I'll collapse this again. So, oh, sorry, I can't collapse that. Unfortunately, it would close everything. So I specify the axis in a different way this time around. In this case, I'm keeping the row, I'm moving the row, sorry, I'm moving the batch to be the column now. Let me just run this first and then you can see. Okay, so I would probably have to keep this out so I can move it to the top. Yeah, okay, yeah. So we can see this with respect to the original array W. So what this has done is it has moved. We've taken 0, 3, and 60 from each batch. We've taken each element in the first row and used it to create a new row. We've taken then we move on to this. And we move on to this, take an element, we'll move on to the next column, we take an element from each row of the first row, we take an element from the first row of each batch, and then we create a new column with it. So we're saying the main order in which, the main axis in which we want to transpose is the batch, right? And so make the batch, make the elements in each batch a new column. Use that to create the new column. And I might be mistaken, but it's kind of similar to, well, it's not totally similar, but it's kind of similar to when you pass in no specified axis. Feel free to play around with this more. It could be confusing at first, but feel free to play around with this more to get more understanding about this. So that will be all for transposing arrays. In the next section, we'll be talking about other forms of pivoting arrays, including flattening, revealing, and some other forms. Thank you, and see you in the next section.